Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. I make it a point on this channel to be fair to players and to be fair to the team that I cover, which is the Cleveland Browns. And sometimes this involves me having to be very, very critical about certain aspects of certain players' game or what they're bringing to the table that might not be strictly about their all 22 tape or something like that. And I stand by my criticism of Myles Garrett after the Steelers game, where I thought that he kind of overstepped and had a misstep as a leader, where he was openly critical of an offense in a game that he wasn't very productive in. And I was very disappointed in Myles after that game. I thought Myles could have demonstrated some better leadership. But when I see improvement, I think it's also important to acknowledge that and be just as loud with the acknowledgement of the improvement as I was of the criticism of the problem, right? The problem to me was that, hey, Myles wasn't stepping up. Myles wasn't demonstrating that he wanted to do everything possible to win. Myles wasn't, acting like the losing was bothering him. And Myles was kind of just throwing his hands up like there was nothing that he could do. And I didn't like that attitude from Myles or the defense or somebody who's supposed to be a leader on the defense, that, yeah, because the offense is bad, I get a free pass to do whatever I want on defense, especially after a performance where the defense was butt cheeks, right? Like, that's just what it was. So no, does Myles' 5-sack game change how I felt after that game? No. Like, I think it was everything I said there was deserved, but how Myles has responded since that game, how Myles has acted and dealt with his leadership since that game, I think has been pretty impressive. Look, say what you want about Myles Garrett in this game versus New England. The one thing you can absolutely not get away with saying is that Myles Garrett didn't show up, that Myles Garrett didn't want it. I want to talk more about the leadership of Myles Garrett and why I think it is worthwhile to kind of note the improvement the last couple of weeks. But before I do, I got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. So again, with Myles Garrett, he can kind of be a lightning rod sometimes for people. There are some folks who think Myles Garrett never does anything ever wrong, and anytime you criticize Myles Garrett, you're wrong because you should be criticizing like 45 other things about the Browns and not acknowledge when Myles isn't doing something right. And there's also a section of fans who love it. They get excited when Myles Garrett does something wrong because they secretly love TJ Watt or some weird shit like that. I don't know. I don't try to get into the weeds of these kind of things. But Myles, I thought, was legitimately in the wrong after the Pittsburgh game. And look, if you know me, if you know how I go about trying to evaluate football and evaluate life, I'm not somebody who's going to just see that somebody makes a mistake and condemn them forever for making the mistake. I tend to think that life is about your response to mistakes versus you making a mistake. Everybody gonna fuck up at one point. Everybody gonna say the wrong thing at some point, or do the wrong thing, or you'll be caught up in maybe some group thing, and then you just end up people gonna make mistakes. How you respond when you realize you're making the mistakes, that's what defines things, right? even on a football level, right? If we take it from personal responsibility to football, right? If you're a quarterback, you're going to throw an interception. If you're a running back, you're going to fumble the ball. If you're a wide receiver, you're going to have a drop. If you're a defensive player, you're going to get mossed if you're a DB, or if you're a linebacker, you're going to miss a tackle, or if you're a defensive tackle, you're going to get washed. Like, you're going to mess up at some point. It's unreasonable to expect a NFL player to never mess up. It's not that you mess up that's the problem. It's how you respond to the mess up. I was watching college football the other day, and I saw people kind of make a big deal because I think Ty Simpson threw an interception late in the game, but then he came back and was nails in the fourth quarter and balled out and got Alabama the win. And to me, that's more impressive than putting up 5 touchdowns, 300 yards versus, Southwest Newcastle State or whatever the hell, right? Or, beating the hell out of Missouri. Like, nobody care about beating the hell out of Missouri or whatever the hell, right? But making a mistake, throwing that out the window, getting back to it in the fourth quarter and balling out, that tells me so much more about a player than a stat line can tell me about a player, because that tells me what that player's process is like, right? A player with a bad process lets 1 mistake turn into 2 mistakes, turn into 3 mistakes, turn into 4 mistakes. Again, if you go back to that video where I was bitching about Myles Garrett, I was bitching about everybody on the Browns because they were just letting the process get so funky, right? 1 mistake was turning into 2 mistakes, and then guys got their head down, now they're finger pointing. It's bullshit, right? And what we saw in this Patriots game, while it wasn't a win and while the offense is obviously so bad, we're talking about firing the coach already. The Browns obviously have problems on the offensive side of the ball, but what we saw in that loss was a football team that went down swinging, at least on special teams and on defense. I got nothing but respect for that. Myles Garrett wanted to come to the podium after this game and talk some shit about the offense. I would have had nothing to say to him. Because what Myles Garrett do in this game but ball out. 5 sacks in this game. Did everything he could to keep the Browns in it. The defense trying to do everything they can. Now, were they perfect in this game? Absolutely not. There were some busted coverages. Once they lost Tyson Campbell for the rest of the game, that ended up being a huge problem for them as well. But they fought like hell. I mean, Devin Bush was trying to keep this game close at the end of it. He got a forced fumble. They got an onside kick recovery. This is the kind of fight that I want to see from a defense that's supposed to be led by one of the greatest players in my generation. That's what you want to see from Myles Garrett. People on the internet sometimes get so tribal and sensitive about the things that they like, because on the internet, you're exposed to so many opinions that it always feels like the thing that you like is under attack. So that makes people very sensitive about the things that they like, because people want to enjoy shit in life, right? Before all this social media, if you like something, it was very hard for you to interact with people who hated the thing that you like, right? Like, if you were a fan of Steve Blackman back in the old WWF days, some of you don't know who the hell I'm talking about, but that's my point exactly. If you were a fan of Steve Blackman and that was your favorite wrestler, right, you would have to survey like 20 people at a WWF event to find like the guy that also hates Steve Blackman, right? You would just be allowed to enjoy that on your own. With the internet, you're exposed to so many opinions that you can't just enjoy shit anymore, right? Like, you're always running into people who hate the thing that you love. And that makes you feel like the thing that you love is always under attack, but it's really not. Right? In a sense, that's how people feel. People get really, really sensitive about things that they like, especially on the internet. I am critical of the Cleveland Browns, or I'm critical of players on the Cleveland Browns that I truly believe can be better. I'm not going to do a video scathing somebody who I don't think can do better, because I think that's pointless. right? I'm not going to sit here and shit on Gage Larverdin for not being very good, right? I'm not going to shit on some player who we don't expect to be good, who's not really good. I'm going to sit here and criticize the players that I think can do better, or the leaders on the team that I think could do a better job. Because I want to expect more out of those who deserve to have the expectations to expect more. And the reason why is because I think it should be normal to expect people who are better to do better. I know it's real easy to say, well, this person you don't expect better doesn't get the same criticism, because we don't expect better from that person, right? The better you are, the higher the expectations for yourself are going to be. And that's just how it is. If you want low expectations, be really bad at everything that you do. You'll live with low expectations for the rest of your life. But if you want to dare to be good at something, well, you have to deal with the fact that the expectations and the criticism for you is going to be on a higher bar than somebody who just is not supposed to be you. So with Myles, I have a very high bar for Myles on everything, because Myles expects to be a Hall of Fame legacy kind of player. And I felt like a couple of weeks ago, he was letting that legacy down. Last week, I think Myles Garrett has made some progress and some steps in the right direction. How he handled himself this week, in the press conference after that game, I respect it. The anger, the frustration is so obvious, right? At the end of that game, despite the fact that he had 5 sacks, I respect it, right? That's the kind of shit that I like to see. And as vocal as I'm going to be about things that I don't like, I'm going to be just as vocal about the things that I do like. And Myles, how he handled himself, the fact that he had an excuse in this game to just be out there sideline, high-fiving, dapping up people, super happy because he got 5 sacks. Who the fuck won't say anything to him? But I appreciate that Myles wasn't happy about them 5 sacks. I don't believe, when he said on that press conference, I would have traded every single one of them sacks for a win. I believe him. Because it's obvious. That's the kind of shit. That's the kind of leadership that I think is going to help this team once they get right on offense, probably in the offseason, to the place where they need to. That's the kind of grit that they need to develop in these moments where they're struggling, so that they can lean back on it when they're succeeding and have that edge to them. This is the stuff that I want to see more of from Myles, right? Not just 5 sack games. Obviously, I would love to see 5 sack games from Myles, but also I want to see Myles demonstrate that like the winning does matter. And he cares about this team specifically winning games, not just jumping ship and winning somewhere else. You know, he's committed to here for the next couple of years. He knows that. So he has to be as invested in the solution as anybody else. And, you know, I appreciate how he's handled these 2 weeks as somebody who is a big critic of how he handled himself at the Pittsburgh. Got to give Myles Garrett his credit. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.